episode number 180, and the final part of the Seinfeld review series has arrived. And we left off, of course, with right before the trial of Jerry, Elaine, George, and Kramer, who are being prosecuted for breaking the Good Samaritan law. And of course, there's an ADA who is hungry, so hungry to put these four away. Just probably for good publicity, as I would say. Because, let me be real, some of the stuff about this ADA just didn't make zero sense whatsoever. I had some continuity issues and a couple of little issues with this whole trial deal. I mean, it was a good way to reminisce on the past, but there were still some issues I had. So as we said, we left off, the ADA's main thing he wanted to focus on was character. He wanted to prove this isn't the only time these four have acted out immaturely like this. Which is what he said when he started his speech. Now, actually, before I get to that, I think there was like a scene where, Jackie Childs was preparing them in the back, and, I think the biggest complaint he has was George had to change the color of his tie. There, of course, was a deleted scene, of course, of, people walking into the trial and introducing themselves to each other, such as Newman was sitting with Keith Hernandez, saying what he was doing these days and whatnot. And Newman, I guess, was trying to, get some sympathy on him again, because apparently he didn't have a hotel room. He was just sitting in his car, sleeping in his car. And basically he wanted to try to bribe Keith into, putting a cot in his room. Keith's like, no way, Newman. And then Newman just goes, pretty boy. We also see the rabbi and trying to console the Costanzas, saying how, instead of making this negative thing, the positive way of this is an opportunity to grow in enlightenment and try to make a positive spin on it, basically. The rabbi was there. We see Uncle Leo introduce himself to Babs Kramer, which I thought was weird. That, again, we've always saw her in, one episode, but we didn't see Babs Kramer seem as concerned for her child as the Costanzas and the Seinfelds were. And also, we didn't see Alton Bennis. Mr. Bennis didn't return after he was back way back in season 2 in the Jacket episode. Well, then again, they were intimidated by Lawrence Tierney, who played him, so I guess that might be why. But, all that. And then, we see Peterman introduce himself to Putty. And then when the four came in, when they rose, Kramer acknowledged Keith as they entered the courtroom. But of course, as they're getting settled in, the first moment of order in this court had to be not called on by the four, but they had to but because Mickey came in and he was arguing with Banya over his seat. And then of course George then starts thinking that they're going to be okay because the judge's name, the court used how many, fake names, for things as they posed as. But of course, the judge's name was Judge Arthur Vandelay. So of course, George thinks that's a good sign. There's something in the air. That something's good's going to happen. So, of course, again, the DA... I'm sorry. He's just a DA, not an ADA. The DA says his piece. Jackie Childs, who, again, never loses and is an outstanding lawyer, he basically gets up and he just, rants how, this trial is a complete waste of time. These people were innocent bystanders, while the real perpetrator, those walking around laughing and lying. Lying and laughing and lying. In an extended scene, though, he mentions about how, what had just happened with them, how about the hospital, the plane incident, how they were already shaken up from a near-death experience, and this and that. And amidst this all, also, the executives from NBC show up, and George just chews them out as well for no reason. But then, of course, they get to the testimonies. And like I said, I mainly focused on the deleted scenes because I wanted to recognize who all testified. So the first person who testified was Matt Vogel, the officer who arrested the four. They showed the tape, of course, which I think was the big, was probably one of the biggest pieces of evidence, of course, that caused a rift in their case to actually, be pleaded not guilty. And then Howie, the guy who was being robbed, basically just testify and say that they did nothing, absolutely nothing. But then Mabel Choate was called to the stands. And everybody's confused, like, why is she being called to the stands? And of course, Jackie mentions how, this lady was not, present at the time of the so-called crime. And again, the DA just mentions how, they've gone out of the way to find all these character witnesses, again, to prove that their whole scheme they've been doing has been going on for many years. Judge goes, I will allow it. This is basically where it was like, you knew instantly they were doomed. Because, we have all these characters throughout the rest of the episode coming in and testifying against these four people that obviously, they're supposed to be the heroes in the story, but we know for real they're selfish, greedy, immature people. So the first one was Mabel Choate, who was the woman that Jerry stole the marble rye from. They even brought in Marla Penny, the virgin, who revealed the details for the contest as to why her relationship with Jerry ended. We also have the Bubble Boy, and of course, Jackie Childs is like, what's a Bubble Boy? He lives in a bubble. And of course, the Bubble Boy, whose name of course was Donald's like, who are you? Why are you guys laughing? What are you guys? Never seen a guy in a bubble before? Just seen the same cranky person he was before. He tells his story about whenever Jerry was supposed to go to his house, but of course instead George showed up and they played Trivial Pursuit and they got into a fight over a misprint about the carbs saying moops and morps. Of course, the thing is also, remember, the bubble was trying to choke out George and Susan was the one who actually bursted the bubble, not George. But of course, George is at fault for this. It was Moore's. It was Moops. Moore's. They were still arguing about it to this day. They also have Kramer's girlfriend, I think it was Lola, testifying about how, she got into that accident due to the handicap spot being occupied by their car. So she was given a used wheelchair. And of course, we see the reactions from the main four sitting over there, and they know they're doomed. They know they're doomed from the start. And I guess that's another thing I didn't like. One negative I have about this is yes, they were basically telling these stories of these famous moments in the series, but as a story for the finale, it's it felt like they had no shot. Because when did Jackie Childs even stand a chance? In the deleted scenes, Jackie Childs even would stand up and sing for his clients, but of course Judge Vandelay wanted nothing to do with it. Which I thought was a little unfair, in my opinion. We have that. We had Dr. Wexler, who was the doctor who first told George that Susan died, and he said that the response to their death was resisting jubilation or something like that. And of course, the Ross is standing up, starts screaming out we knew you murdered. We knew he knew those envelopes were toxic. Again, saying that they think that George killed Susan. Which of course, Judge Van had to call order in a court once again. Then, of course, after that was Sidra Holland. You all know Sidra, Miss They're Real and They're Spectacular. And let me say this. When they did the implant episode, yes, the character was supposed to be someone who had large breasts. But they didn't really emphasize. They still... I don't know. I'm not saying I want it to be a little more vulgar. But they didn't... I feel like they didn't have, they could have, done better, I felt, with the whole, sex appeal thing from Sidra. This episode, they nailed it on 100% properly. the way she was dressed. Of course, the makeout scene in bed with a certain someone, in a second, Jackie Charles, because he walks in, he's like, woo, you dated this woman? So, of course, she testifies and talks about how she still thinks that Jerry sent Elaine to the sauna to try to find out if her breasts were real. There was that. Mr. Bookman, the library cop, which I'm pretty sure he was the farthest back they had to go, character-wise. He talks about how Jerry had that overdue book from 25 years, Tropic of Cancer. George's girlfriend, I think Robin, who had a son that George attended the birthday party, and there was a fire in the kitchen, and he knocked over all the women and children. Of course, there was an extended version of that story story as well. And of course, George was sitting there just like pretend to ignore her, because again, he knows he has no shot. He knows he has absolutely no shot. So there was that. There was the security guard who busted Jerry and George for urinating in the parking garage episode in the mall parking lot. We also have a deleted scene where Arnold Deansfry accused Kramer of faking being mentally challenged back in the Jimmy episode, which of course Kramer reminds them it was the Novocaine. There was the detective who arrested Kramer and the Wigmaster for mistaking him as being a pimp. There was the Low Talker, who of course there was the final edit only consisted on just one, when she started talking one time, and then this is the only time they didn't like bash Jackie for talking. And Jackie says, either give her a loud microphone or get another witness over here. But in a deleted scene, they show that they had them be able to hear her once and say how, Jerry embarrassed her on TV with his puffy shirt or something like that. And then Jackie said the line. Then, of course, we got Steinbrenner. Of course, bringing back Larry David doing the voice of Steinbrenner and Lee Baer doing, which, of course, at the end of part one, he was shown leaving Yankee Stadium, being escorted out of his office at Yankee Stadium to go to the trial. The only complaint he had about George was that he was a communist, which again was not true, of course. Then they had Marcelino, who got little Jerry Seinfeld into cockfighting. Don't know why he was a witness, because he wouldn't get rid of the bounce check. But they should at least address the bounce check. There was also a series of then deleted scenes of the officer who arrested Kramer and Elaine for kidnapping a dog, the one that couldn't stop barking right outside of Elaine's apartment door. And Newman was involved in it. And one of two times, they're all deleted scenes where Newman tried to get up and walk away, and of course they would say that heavyset fellow was involved too. And of course Newman had all the popcorn and everything he was eating during the trial. He was like, I don't know why Newman didn't leave sooner whenever they walked in, of course. And then we also had Mr. Lippman testify. Now, I was confused by this one. Because, of course, in the credits, he was Mr. Lippman. But he was up there to testify because of George, when he worked at Pendant Publishing briefly, and he was fired for having sex with a clean woman on the desk in his office. But the thing though was that episode, Richard Fancy played Mr. Lippman. He was credited as Mr. Breckman or Mr. Breckham, whatever it was called. So little inconsistency there too. He wasn't addressed at which one he was, but again, that was a deleted scene. We also see the pharmacist who Elaine had ordered the full case of sponges from back in the Sponge, and there was even a longer version of the deleted scene where there's an extended version. He's basically saying how she was desperate and whatnot when she came into the store. He's like, sponges, but I'm not talking about the things you clean with. They're for sex. Said she needed a whole case of them. And of course, people were reacting to the crowd and whatnot. There of course was someone I forgot. I think it was Elaine's boyfriend. The episode revealing the secret about Elaine's nipple exposing Christmas card. Mr. Pitt came and accused of Elaine trying to smother him with a pillow and kill him. There was a deleted scene where Mr. Pitt entered and he ignored Jerry's hello, because Jerry never met Mr. Pitt in person except for the time when he gave him that wrong heart medication at the pharmacy. But of course, he also said that Elaine tried to kill him because she knew that she was in his will or whatnot. Also, in deleted scenes, there was Ramon, the pool guy, telling a story about getting knocked out, and once again, Newman trying to leave, and of course, he rats out Newman, but Newman never got any punishment for being involved in this, of course. There was, but then, of course, after Ramon's testimony, some lady advised the DA that, he's cleared customs and he should be here soon. I'm pretty sure I know who they were talking to. The guy that Jerry Seinfeld told that his character was going to be the guy to put the nail in the coffin. Which, of course, I will share at the end, as I do like to do a good impersonation of that scene. That whole speech. We also see in a deleted scene Poppy. He was there to discuss the episode whenever him and Elaine argued over their differences over abortion, and how his urination, issues he had acted up. And then of course her and Jerry gave him those gifts, that whatever those gifts were, that if he would take them, he would die, or of course make his conditions worse. And then of course the final two that made it onto the main edit, of course, the second to last one was the soup Nazi, Yev Kasem. Can you spell that? No. Next question. How do you know the defendants? The four of them used to come to my restaurant. They didn't know how to. The idiot clowns didn't know how to order. I banned the woman for a year, and then one day, she came back. And of course, they showed a scene where Elaine found his recipes in that dresser set that Kramer got from the soup Nazi. And basically reveals how Elaine she published my recipes. I had to close the shop, move to Argentina. She ruined my business. Soup wasn't all that good anyway. What did you say? And then, clearing customs in that deleted scene. It had to be this one, as the state called Babu Bot to the stands. And of course, Jerry and Elaine were stunned that they found Babu because he got deported. So Babu shows up, and Brian George played this fantastically. And Jerry for real told Brian George that you're the man. And if there was any character I felt that was the right to kind of put the nail on the coffin, I think Babu was the right one, had the proper story. And you think about it also. In the Visa episode, when Babu got deported, he said someday he will get his revenge. And this is where he gets his justice. I don't know why. I'm not making fun of the guy. I always love to just quote this scene. So you come all the way, for a long way to be here with us today. Yes. All the way from Pakistan. And how do you know the defendants? I owned a restaurant. Seinfeld toy chains made to Pakistani. But nobody came. And then, he got me an apartment in this building. But they mixed up the mail, and I never got my immigration renewal papers. So they deported me. It's all his fault. Him and the women. But they didn't care. All they did was just mock me, just like they did to the fat fellow. All the time, mocking, all the time. And now, it is Babu's turn to mock. Finally, I will have some justice. Send them away. Send them all away, locked them up forever. They are not human. They're very bad. Very, very, very bad. And I agree. I still agree again that this was the right person to be the last testimony they show to put the nail on the coffin for Babu and his story about what he has against the main four, particularly of course Jerry and Elaine, but mostly Jerry of course as well. And then, of course, they show scenes of everybody, just hanging out while, of course, they wait for the verdict to come in. We did get another, Geraldo Rivera, newscast thing, recapping the trial. They're showing a bunch of people having some, fun, besides Newman sleeping in the car, but, I think Banya, Mickey, and Keith playing pool somewhere. I think the Seinfeld's listening to a lecture, I think, from the rabbi. I know a couple people were sitting outside, and the soup knock was serving soup. Poppy questioned about something about soup. No soup for you. Took his soup away. The one, though, I didn't like that I thought was too far. There was a scene showing Mr. Ross buying a gun. I thought that was a bit too far. I didn't like how they did that. But then, of course, earlier on, remember when I said how Jackie was like, woo, when Sidra came in? Yes, in the midst of him, the lawyer, waiting for the verdict to be in, he's back at the hotel, getting in bed, making out, probably having sex with Sidra. Which, of course, as I said, okay, it's good I like that they finally, because they really emphasized her as, one of the best-looking women, of course, in the series, of course. Well, at the time, of course. So some others you can maybe challenge, of course, but definitely the woman who has big, real breasts, of course. I felt like, they needed to do a scene like that with her, to really, get the point across who her character was. But, of course, Jackie thinks that, this trial is going to go on for days and they're not going to hear anything. And sure enough, they get a call and they're ready. So Jackie got interrupted with his little fun time. Anyways, they go back. And, of course, all the witnesses are rounded around in the back. Everybody else is, sitting there. The judge comes in. The jury comes in as well. Kramer then thinks that they're going to be okay because that the one of them smiled at him, and Jerry's like, maybe because she knows you're going to jail. And of course, again, let me say something here. Did we get to see one scene, not in even the deleted scenes, where Jackie Childs got to fight back against these character witnesses? Again, other than his little, innocent bystanders, rant at the beginning, Jackie Childs had, no say in anything. So, like I said, the moment Mabel Choate walked in, you knew they were doomed. And, of course, yeah, they were found not guilty. And then, of course, everybody, just some people party, some people, pass out. Estelle Costanza fainted. But Frank Costanza was more concerned about, catching the plane home rather than, the fate of his son. But, yes, they're sentenced to 1 year in prison. To be removed from reality for 1 year. To think about what they can do better or whatnot. So of course there is an alternate ending showing that what happened when they said not guilty, which thank God, because Mr. Ross made that purchase. I still thought that was stupid, and I thought that was too far, having that scene where he went to go buy a gun. I didn't like that. That wasn't funny at all. Of course, they get put back into the little jail thing they were at until they were sent to their, cell blocks. Because obviously Elaine had to go to a female prison, and then Jerry, George, and Kramer went to the male, the guys' prisons. And of course, first, Elaine mentions about calling Jill from prison. That'd be a bad idea. Which, no, not a bad idea at all. So that debate ends. Kramer jumps up again, finally gets all that water knocked out of his head from being at the beach. And then Jerry and George have this conversation about one of George's buttons, and it, of course, was the same conversation that they had in the very first scene of the very first episode. And of course, after they have that debate, about the buttons, and then George mentions, have you had this conversation before? I think we have. As course, the camera panned back and faded out, and at first, that was how they were going to end it. Now, of course, in the trivia, there's a fun fact about how an original idea they had how the last scene was going to go, but I'll share in a second. But they couldn't end it quite like that. So how did they end it? They shot one more thing of Jerry doing stand-up in the jail. And, of course, they're talking to a bunch of, the prisoners doing stand-up. And of course, Kramer was acting like, just like a overjoyed, fan laughing his ass off. And then, of course, after a while, when Jerry started asking people, like, what are they in for? He kept making jokes about what they were in for. One, of course, was Larry David. He overheard him say Grand Theft Auto, and he threatens Jerry and whatnot. And then they said, okay, that's enough, Seinfeld. And they cut his act short and pull him out. And the end. That is how the finale ended. Now, of course, there's a lot of trivia before I give my final thoughts on everything in the series. First, let me turn the light on, because it's getting very dark in here. Let me turn the light on. Much better. Okay. Alright, let's finish this off. We got a lot of, facts to do. Some still from the last slap, scenes at the round table, and, of course, IMDb trivia, and then my final thoughts, and then we're out of here. We're wrapping this up. Like I said before, dialogue in the last scene was the same conversation Jerry and George had in the first scene. The toughest thing about the finale, of course, was the secrecy element. People were that into knowing how this finale was going to go. So because of the secrecy, and because they had to hire security, they had to sign documents to not reveal anything, like the actors, the producers, the studio audience when they came in. Jerry, it was that crazy that, again, they had security set to watching every angle, make sure people weren't trying to break in and whatnot, or see other things going on. It was that crazy that Jerry was even looking into invisible ink to use as well. They went to extreme measures such as that ink to make sure it couldn't be copied. Actors were also only given pieces of the script that they were in, but had to give them back and sign off on them. The script for the finale was 152 pages long, 42 sets and locations, and 55 minutes of airtime. And again, even for the outdoor shoots, security had to be set up for, and the studio audience had to sign off to not reveal any info either. And again, the main four did enjoy, sitting there, behind, the defendant's desk, or the prosecutor's, whatever desk it is. They felt like they were in the audience laughing, reminiscing with each previous guest star. Or I think Jerry and Julia were drawing doodles or whatnot of things while it was all going on. Of course, Jerry, asks if they felt they ended it at the right time in the scenes at the round table. Jason Alexander mentioned how doing something like this makes them all wish they did more, which of course reminiscing and doing the scenes from the round table. But also at the time the series ended, they felt they couldn't get any better than what they had. Michael Richards was open, of course, to going ahead, but he was fine with ending it as well. And then Jerry, of course, had 9 years since he was both actor and producer. He never had a break, unlike the other characters. And then Lane also said it was still hard to say goodbye, for sure, as the emotions were not able to be held during that final shoot. As the four main did get emotional. I guess they did a huddle before every episode before they got started. And the last huddle they did before they start filming the finale, Jerry said, "For the rest of our lives, no one will think of one of us, they'll think of the four of us." And he can't think of 3 people that he would have that be true of. And of course, everybody except for Michael Richards started crying. John O'Hurley mentioned so that he thought that the show was hitting a different stride, and they felt they would go for 1 more year. But he understood that the 4 main characters were exhausted and just ready to move on to something else. Phil Morris, who played Jackie Childs, was a little scared because he realized how big of a role he had being the lawyer for the main protagonist. But like I said, again, the problem was other than his little innocent bystander, rant he did, he had no shot. He really had no chance whatsoever. They didn't let him speak at all. And you don't hear what his follow through was on any of his witnesses. They never even let him question a witness. So at times, he kind of felt useless. Also, I forgot to mention, after, of course, the verdict was made, he basically got ready to get up and go back to the room with Sidra. And of course, Jerry's like confused, and then Jackie goes, "Oh, by the way, they're real and they're spectacular." Oh man. So Jackie lost, but he still scored Sidra. Anyways, Danny Woodburn, who played Mickey, mentions how he didn't think he was going to be in the finale or even be considered for the finale. But he had just happened to be at Castle Rock the one day for a meeting, and then he went to go get lunch, and while he was there, he ran into Larry David. And for some reason, he feels, and he's convinced that had he not gone to lunch that day, he probably wouldn't have been in the finale, because Larry would never seen him, and he thinks that he would not have been, considered for the finale. He didn't really have much of a role besides that deleted scene. There was also apparently things were disappearing at the end of the set, which they had to put more security cameras up because of stuff disappearing. Again, Jerry doing the stand-up in the jail was the last thing they shot. And then, of course, there was mixed reactions to the finale. Larry was also concerned that he mentions how they thought they were doing a little too much highlights with the clip show, and then the finale also being more reminiscent also. But to him, it felt like it was the best way to end a non-sweetness ending for a bunch of greedy, selfish people, which is true. Again, they're the heroes, but they're not nice guys that you want to see a big hurrah at the end. That's not really how it's supposed to end. Them somewhat getting their comeuppance for the immaturity kind of made sense in my opinion. But of course, Jerry mentions also, of course, how a lot of people felt the finale was too big, and they more so did too small. But again, it was the finale. It should have been different. They still had no clue how else you could have ended the show like this. Larry felt, of course, getting the secrecy. They also felt that the secrecy set the bar too high, but it was also unavoidable. And then Michael Richards was like, well, we couldn't die from licking toxic envelopes, of course, as they mentioned. And like I said, there really was nowhere else to go really for it, so that's the best they could go with. And then, of course, well, before I read the IMDb trivia facts, the original idea for the last scene was going to be the four of them, when they got out of jail a year later, walking back into the coffee shop, sitting down, and the only line that was going to be in that scene was George going, "That was brutal." That was going to be the last line, the last scene of the series. That was brutal. Just check over IMDb as well to see if there's any more facts before I give my final thoughts. On the night of the finale, TV Land paid tribute by airing no programming during that hour. Instead, they showing a closed TV Land office door with handwritten signs that read, "We're TV fans, so we're watching the last episode of Seinfeld. We'll return at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Pacific Time." This was the fifth most watched television finale of all time. Apparently, also, it was revealed that Kramer entered Jerry's apartment 389 times over the course of the series. I already talked about you had to sign off on things. The U.S. West Coast airing the finale of Seinfeld coincided with the death of Frank Sinatra. Sinatra's ambulance was able to arrive at his home and then to Cedars Sinai Medical Center very quickly in light traffic due to many in L.A. being indoors to watch the show. When the streets of L.A. are silent, you know it's a big deal. Response to this episode was mixed. Jerry later admitted that this was the wrong way to wrap up the series, whereas Larry David, the script of it, has stood by the episode. Say we didn't screw up the finale. This was a good finale. And of course, in Curb Your Enthusiasm, there's a line where Jerry said, "Larry, we already screwed up one finale. We can't do another." But again, like I said, I kind of agree. What else was there to do for the end of this one? We couldn't end on a super happy note. We had to end on a sour note in some ways because it fit the characters well. Let me see here. Again, there's a lot of rumors that circulated the episode, such as Jerry and Elaine getting married, or that Jerry, George, Elaine, and Kramer would all die. And, of course, all of them were parodied in the episode when they were going down on the flight. And then, I forgot to mention, while they were waiting for the verdict to be revealed, Jerry asked Elaine, what was she going to say on the flight when they were going down? And she's like, I've always loved you, United Airlines. Oh, okay. And they just moved on. Jason Alexander's real-life Deanne E. title is among the jurors in the courtroom scenes. There was enough material in total, even though the episode the full show ran 55 minutes. There was enough material to run 3 half-hour episodes. Now, this is one I thought was cool. The prison guard who cut Jerry's set short and escorted him off stage in the last scene where he was doing stand-up in the jail cell is comedian John Heyman, who was the voice of the Bubble Boy. That was a neat one, I thought. Alright, so talk about that. Talk about this. Let's see here. The montage of people leaving New York for a trial revealed that Putty and Mickey lived one doorway from each other. With the clip show being showed before this, the Chronicle, between that and the finale, there was a 2-hour marathon of Seinfeld that day that they first aired that attracted an audience of 76 million viewers. Warren Littlefield and Tom Sharones made cameo appearances where they can be seen during the scene in Monks on the table behind Jerry. And Littlefield is the one on the left, while Sharones is the one on the right. Let me see here. The town where the mugging took place was the same set used in Gilmore Girls, Pretty Little Liars, and Heart of Dixie. Let me see here. Not too much more really went there. When the finale went to air, it was in the original time slot as its first episode. Alright, so this. I already mentioned that. How many times? Trying to see if there's anything else here. Apparently, the working title for this episode is going to be A Tough Nut to Crack, which would have been interesting. Of course, we had Judge Vandelay. I mentioned that. A lot of the stuff we mentioned before. I think. Let me see this trivia down here. Alright, talk about that. Alright, talk about that. Julia Louis-Dreyfus did not appear in a series pilot episode. In fact, she was unaware that the episode existed until it was revealed as part of the DVD box set in 2004. She is also the only one of the core 4 characters to not be in the last scene, as she could not have logically been present in men's prison. So it kind of like started and ended without her in the scenes, basically. List of all the people who testified. In many episodes, Newman appeared and he would often go off on a tirade towards Jerry, only to get cut off by someone before finishing. This is the only episode, though, that Newman got to finish what he wanted to say. And when the 4 are arrested, the Latham Ledger has the headlines of Jackie Chiles set to defend New York 4 in Samaritan trial. You can see that it's dated May 14th, 1998, the same date that this episode went to air. And, of course, the last fact, last show of the series. Whoo! This was a 40-minute video. A lot of trivia there, of course, I figured. A lot of stuff I thought I knew I'd talk about. Guys, we've done it. I've reviewed all 180 episodes of Seinfeld. I'm glad I did this. Like I said, I wanted to do something different. Why not do my favorite sitcom of all time? I love this series. And this, again, it's different. It's hilarious. It's corny. It's, as Jerry said, the show should have been called just Dumb Luck. It's about a bunch of people. Some stuff, yes, they could prevent it. But a lot of stuff that happened to them was out of dumb luck. Some of my favorite episodes for sure. My favorite still about it is the airport. I still don't know why I love that episode so much. Maybe it's the Gross Bard storyline, or the blurb in the magazine, the back and forth between JFK. It was great. The contest, the tape, the keys. There's not so many episodes I disliked. I mean, there was some towards the end that I was just like, meh, it's okay. I don't know why. One that I say is my least favorite is still the gum episode. That one I was like, man, not probably my least favorite in the series. So many others. I could be here all day, but I gotta be honest, guys. As much as I love Seinfeld, I love talking about this. Again, as I mentioned how many times, it took me just a tad bit over a year to finish this series. And with how many ideas I had that I love to do on this channel, other sitcoms I want to review, other video games I want to review, I got to find a better way around my busy schedule to get these series done a little more faster. Because, I know, especially in May, there was a long period where I went like almost a month without doing like any reviews. Well, besides like my weekly live reviews or whatnot. But if I am to do another sitcom series review, which there's still plenty of sitcoms I want to do, like I still feel the next one I should do is Full House or Fuller House. If I do more sitcom reviews, out of respect for the sudden death of Bob Saget this year. If I do them again though, or review any TV series again, I think the best thing to do is review by season. Because, like, for Seinfeld, I would watch a disc from that season and then review episodes on that disc. Maybe if I watch a whole season and then review each individual episode of that season, that I'd have more recorded at once. That way I would probably get more done faster. Or I could just do, like, for example, Full House is 8 seasons. Maybe I can just have 8 episodes and we'll just do an overview of all 8 seasons. But we'll see how it goes, of course. I mean, I would definitely like to talk about more shows again. It's something different. Again, I'm a sitcom guy. I love sitcoms. A couple other, different things I like too. But, I'm at a point where I'm just burned out, though. But I do need a break. I need a break in a way where it's like I want to be able to watch some shows and play some games without making it into a YouTube project. So I don't know when I'll start another sitcom series review. Hopefully it won't be too long. But for now, I definitely want to just sit back and just relax for a bit. Enjoy things I haven't really been able to enjoy for a while. And like I said, come up with like a faster way to try to get some of these projects completed. But this series for sure was well worth it. One thing I was a little disappointed with was the fact that I do follow a Seinfeld Fanatics page on Facebook. And I was hoping to like share my reviews on that page. But because it's part of a YouTube channel, even though my channel's not monetized, they advised that I can't be sharing that. It's their rules. I respect that. Disappointed as I thought it would be a good way to definitely give this series a lot of attention. But we'll see how it goes the years down the line, of course, with how these reviews do. Again, could they get more attention than what or whatnot? And of course, last thing before I go, the finale itself. Like I said, I didn't hate it. I understand why some people hate it. I think the bar was just set way, way, way too high for it. And like Jerry said, this was like too big for them. They never went that big. They always went small. But I also still do agree that this had to have like a non-sweetened ending for how these characters are for real. So I do agree, in some aspect of that. I just wish it wasn't so obvious that they were going to lose the trial. That's what my big problem was. I mean, again, because to me, it just looked like this DA who we never even heard of until this episode. Like, it's one thing if Newman was the DA. Like, someone like Newman's, like, someone like that evil was the DA. But, again, though, like I said, I agree that it wasn't the smoothest finale, but it was what it was. So yeah, I'm out of things to say. I talked my head off about Seinfeld for a whole year. Like I said, I'll definitely watch the series again sometime, but it's time to move on to something else. And with that being said, guys, that's a wrap. That's a wrap and the end of this journey, 180 episode journey of my Seinfeld review series. Guys, leave your thoughts down in the comment section. What were your thoughts on the finale? What are your thoughts on the whole series? Do you have a favorite episode, a favorite season, a least favorite episode, a favorite character, a least favorite character? You know, talk about all you want. Leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. Be sure as always to slap a like on the video, subscribe for more content on my channel. Follow me on Twitter as well, at DemandAir183. Again, guys, thank you very much for tuning in to this Seinfeld review series. Hopefully, again, more sitcoms are yet to come. But again, hopefully the next one I do, which again will most likely be Full House and Fuller House, hopefully I find some way to have the reviews done faster. Because like I said, I can't keep going like 9-12 months working on the same sitcom or the same, like video game project, because again, I get burned out. So, we'll see how that goes in the future for the Channel of Demand. Until then, guys, I'm checking out. I'll catch you all later. This has been a series about a show about nothing. Good night, everybody!